pasuk, Zot chukat haTorah. Achok. We're good? Yes? Achok, we all know, is a mitzvah whose reasoning and logic is hidden to us. Rabbeinu Bechaya explains, achok comes from the word chakika, which means to engrave. Because only when one's commitment to Hashem plows through adversity and is independent of any logic, can you engrave Torah into your hearts. The pasuk in Shir Hashirim says, Simeni kachotam al libecha, kachotam al zeraecha. That the essence of life is to engrave Torah into our hearts. You know, this evening is a very dear one for me. Firstly, I am, first time in a long time, unlike many of you here, among the many who are celebrating a Siyam on Masechet Psachim. So, not going to mention that it was with a little help of Daf Yomi, who happened to have been this year. But this past year was a very strange one. One that we might use words such as a year filled with uncertainty, confusion, fear and anxiety for some, mental and emotional exhaustion, adversity, impediments, and hindrances. With remote learning for some, social distancing and masks for others, a ban on singing. You guys had every single excuse in the world to slack off, but you didn't. You fought through the hardships and the inconveniences that came your way. As someone who lives on campus, been here for a couple of years, I've been here through and through. I can say that you, every single one of you, the Talmidim that are here, the ones that are not here, you are responsible for opening up the Beis Medrash, and you are the ones, testing, you are the ones who returned the crown of Torah to its origin, right here, right now. Mazel tov to all of you. On behalf of the entire Yeshiva University family, we'd like to welcome all of the parents and family members that are here with us. May you see continued nachas ad 120 shana. I'd like to also acknowledge the dozens of individuals who are consistently found in the Bet Midrash on a nightly basis, learning night seder, and some even taking bechinas as well, but all working hard to be kovea itim every single night after long, long days. I'd like to also wish a big mazel tov to the over 100 Misaimim among Talmidei Yeshiva and the Makor program. For all those who have already been Messiahim, the Masechta, for all those who plan on being Messiahim by Elul time, I have right here with me Sefer Beis Yitzchak, which is a sefer that was compiled last time the yeshiva learned Masechet Bava Basra, which, by the way, public service announcement, is going to be the yeshiva's Masechta this coming year in the morning seder and night seder. Get started now. So this will be given out to you if you are one of the Messiahim, or will finish by Elul time. Many are here with us live. You guys are enjoying a nice, delicious meal, nice, delicious Suda, courtesy of the yeshiva. But even those who are not with us are also enjoying a nice, delicious meal sent to their homes, courtesy of the yeshiva. Last but not least, I want to acknowledge, I'm not going to go through them by name, Rabbi Kalinsky will be doing that, the Night Seder Rebbeim and Sholem Yeshivim. Mamish bin Moser Nefesh on a nightly basis, some from their families and kids, to be there for you, with you, every single night. I'd like to call upon Rabbi Kalinsky, take over.
Take this off. Take it. Here too. Don't mess with my counter. Wow. 100 of our Talmidim being Messiah Masechet Pesachim. It's an incredible milestone. And I'm overwhelmed with the sense of Hakaras HaTov. Sense of Hakaras HaTov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as picking up on Rabbi Cohen talked about, bringing us to the stage today with all the difficulties and being here tonight. Also picking up what Rabbi Cohen said, Hakaras HaTov to all the Chevra. What an incredible Chevra that was here this year. All of you that were here this year know what I'm talking about. It was just something different. Felt different here in Yeshiva. And it's all due to your credit and your dedication. You wanted to be here. You didn't have to be here. And those that were here really created an atmosphere of Torah, of Aliyah. I was at an Ufruf of one of our Talmidim 2 weeks ago. And while he was being roasted, the person who was speaking talked about how this fellow really grew over his years here in Yeshiva. And he turned to me, he said, see, Rabbi Kalinsky, you can continue to grow while you're here in Yeshiva University. And of course that's the case. And of course, those that were here this year definitely felt that we keep on growing from wherever we started at the beginning of the year, a mamish, an incredible feeling of Aliyah here in Yeshiva. And we should take that with us, obviously, over the summer, next year, and beyond, keeping in mind the significant gains that we had this year. And finally, my main purpose here is to thank the Night Seder Rebbeim. None of the Talmidim who are set Messiahim tonight were here long enough to realize, but maybe some of the Night Seder Rebbeim, definitely some of the Mashgichim. Night Seder wasn't always this way. I'm not talking about the 60s and 70s and 80s when the legends, there were a few people who learned Night Seder and you could throw a bowling ball, no one would be, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about even 10 years ago. Even 10 years ago in Yeshiva, we had Night Seder. There were hundreds of guys learning. But there was one, Shoel Meshiv, who was in the base medrash. You went to, he gave shiurim, he gave answered questions. But the yeshiva only had one Shoel Meshiv that night. And we made a decision a number of years back. I'll mention Zachar Latov, Rav Yehuda Willig was really pushing behind this as well. We need more Rebbeim at night. We need Night Seder Rebbeim. We need more people here evening in, evening out, to be with the Talmidim, to answer the questions, to be there with them, learning with them. And we went from 1 to 2 to 3, and now we have 5 or 6 Night Seder Rebbeim here on staff. And that was very good decision that we made a few years ago. And Baruch Hashem, the Talmidim of the Yeshiva are able to reap the significance of that decision. It's also important that the Night Seder Rebbeim are here during the day and night, and they live here in Yeshiva. They live and breathe Yeshiva. And the Talmidim are able to see that as well. And that's why we call them Rebbeim. We could have called them Night Seder Sholem Yeshivim. We could have said that, but no. Night Seder Rebbeim. These are your Rebbeim here at night. I saw a quote today. It's actually the last 3 lines of the biography of Shlomo Freifeld. He said, the most honest gauge of a Talmid's success is not how much he has learned or how he behaves. It's the amitus of his relationship with his Rebbe. You can gauge how much a Talmid has grown by how connected he is to his Rebbe. And of course, we have incredible Rebbeim. Some Rebbeim are here now, who are with us in the mornings, and they're here during different parts of the day as well. But sometimes Sometimes there are Talmidim that feel that there's another relationship, an additional relationship that can and should be made with the Night Seder Rebbeim. And the dedication of the Night Seder Rebbeim to go beyond the limud, to be there for hadracha. So many of you know the Night Seder walks or the Night Seder talks, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, with the Night Seder Rebbeim on their way home. Somehow they just don't get home too quickly sometimes. They leave the Beis Medrash and it takes them, even though they're 2 blocks away, until they finally get home. It's that significant relationship and that dedication that the Night Seder Rebbeim get. So we thank them for their time, their dedication, their care, their concern. I'd like to call up each of them individually and to thank them. We also want to recognize a few Rebbeim that are with us right now who are moving on to other communities. Some of them were previous Night Seder Rebbeim, and they spent many, many years here in Yeshiva. Many of what we call the good years here in Yeshiva, and we want to recognize them as well. And then I will call up each of the Night Seder Rebbeim. I want to mention Rav Shmuel Lesher, if he's here. I want to mention Rav Yitz Mandel, who's also moving on. Rabbi Ike Sultan. And Rav Yam Levinson. In terms of the Night Seder Rebbeim, not in addition to the Beis Yitzchak, they also get an additional gift from the yeshiva. I'm just calling up in not any significant order other than how it's placed here. Rabbi Jake Steinmetz. Rabbi Johnny Drury. Rabbi Avrami Schonbrun. Rabbi Avian Levinson. Rabbi Schreier. And Rav Yitz Radner. Unfortunately, President Berman is not able to be here this evening. Some of you may have heard, you'll be finding out soon that his father-in-law passed away, so he's home with his family. He definitely is thinking about us and is with us in his thoughts. He definitely wanted to be here, part of the Siyum, part of all the dedication of the Talmidim. The Night Seder, deep into the night, is definitely one of his close feelings for him, and we mentioned him now. And to the next part of the program, we're going to go to our screens. We have the chus of hearing Divrei Bracha from the former Chief Rabbi of Eretz Yisrael, Yisrael Meir Lau.
שלום עליכם וברוכים תהיו. שמעתי מידידי הטוב, כבוד הרב גולדוויך שליטה, שאתם סיימתם את מסכת פסחים לאחרונה. אני רוצה לציין בפניכם פרט אחד קטן, אבל בעיניי הוא רב משמעות. בפרק העשירי, ערבי פסחים, מדובר על 4 כוסות של יין, שאנחנו שותים זכר ל4 כוסות, לזכר ל4 הבטחות של גאולה. הוצאתי והצלתי וגאלתי ולקחתי. 4 הבטחות, 4 כוסות. אומרת המשנה במסכת פסחים שאתם זוכרים טוב מאוד. אם אדם רוצה לשתות יותר מ4 כוסות בליל הסדר, אז בין כוס שני לשלישי ישתה. בין שלישי לרביעי לא ישתה. למה? מה ההבדל? אפילו בברטנורה כבר יש תשומת לב לזה, הוא אומר דבר פשוט. בין הכוס השני לשלישי זה הסעודה, זה שולחן אורך. אז תוך כדי סעודה, אם שותים יין, זה לא משפיע על צלילות הדעת, לא משפיע על הראש, על המוח. אפשר לשתות עוד מי שרגיל לזה, תלוי גם איזה יין. זה לא מזיק ויוכל להמשיך לברכת המזון, לנשמת כל חי, לכל הברכות, עד לחד גדיא ועד בכלל. אבל בין שלישי לרביעי, הכוס השלישי זה ברכת המזון כבר, ואין מפטירין אחר הפסח אפיקומן. הכוס הרביעי זה אחרי כבר ההלל. אין פה כבר שום רשות לשום אכילה ושום שתייה. זה כמו שאומרים על קיבה ריקה. לשתות יין בלי לטפל אותו באוכל, זה משפיע לגמרי על צלילות הדעת. לכן בין שלישי לרביעי לא ישתה. זה בעצם ברטנורה. מה אני בא להוסיף? הכוס השלישי זה מ4 כוסות, וגאלתי אתכם בזרוע נתונה. זה הגאולה המדינית, הקמת מדינה, מלחמת השחרור, ניצחונות על כל השכנים. זה הכוס השלישי, וגאלתי אתכם. הכוס הרביעי זה ולקחתי אתכם לי לעם. זה מעמד הר סיני, היום הזה נהיית לעם, להשם אלוקיך. אז מי ששותה יין בין הכוס השלישי לרביעי, הוא מפריד בין המדינה היהודית למדינה הדמוקרטית. אז הוא רוצה לשתות בין השלישי לרביעי, זאת אומרת להסיח את הדעת בין וגאלתי ולקחתי אתכם לי לעם. לא, לא ישתה. זאתי המסקנה שאסור לנו בארץ ישראל, מדינה יהודית, להפריד בין ה"וגאלתי" ולקחתי אתכם לי לעם. היום הזה נהיית לעם, להשם אלוקיך. זהו יוצר את העם היהודי, וזאת לומדים מהמסכת שאתה סיימת. אני מאחל לכם, כשם שסיימתם מסכת פסחים, תזכו להתחיל, להמשיך, ללמוד ולסיים עוד מסכתות רבות עד 120 אמן.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to see everybody. We now, at this time, have the opportunity to hear from Rabbi Penner. Rabbi Penner is not joining us here. He's joining us from the hospital, actually. Everyone know, maybe you haven't heard, Rabbi Penner's wife donated a kidney just last night today. So he's joining us actually from the hospital. So we're now going to call upon Rabbi Penner to share a few words.
Mazel tov, everyone. Welcome to NYU Hospital. Baruch Hashem, everything is well. I wanted to participate, even if just in a small way. It's one of my favorite moments of the entire year. A mazel tov to all of the Messiahim. A special mazel tov to Rabbi Joel Schreiber. A special mazel tov to Menachem Aaron Wallach, who I know is making a siyum as well. And to all of the Messiahim on Maseches Pesachim. The former Chief Rabbi, Rabbi Lau, just mentioned that one of the final Mishnayos, of course, in Maseches Pesachim, Ein maftirin achar Pesach afikomen. And although we think of an afikomen as something that we eat, we know that an afikomen is something that's not supposed to be eaten in this Mishnah. We're supposed to eat the Korban Pesach in the Beis Hamikdash and then not eat sweets afterwards. Why? So that the tam of Pesach should remain in our mouths. The tam of Pesach should remain in our mouths. That's the goal for every one of you. The tam of Maseches Pesach Rishon, the tam of Maseches Pesach in the Beis Hamikdash, Pesach Sheni, and of course Pesach Sheni itself. That tam, that feeling, what a wonderful Masechta to learn this year. So many beautiful ideas, halacha l'maisa on one hand, and so many beautiful ideas of the world of Kudshim on the other. An opportunity to delve into things that we do every single day and to yearn for things that we hope to see very soon in our time. Keep the tam of Pesach in your mouths, and keep the tam of Pesach in your mouths over the summer. We know that the Gemara at the end discusses not only not eating after the Pesach, but not eating after the matzah. And there may be a different reason why we don't eat after the matzah, why we need the tam matzah in our mouths. I believe, Rabbi Soloveitchik, I don't have any svarim the last couple of days that I've been able to really look at. I believe it was Rabbi Soloveitchik who explained that the reason why we need to have the tam of matzah, even bisman hazeh, in our mouths after we eat the meal, is because the mitzvah of Tzipur Yetzias Mitzrayim is not yet concluded. And just as the earlier parts of Tzipur Yetzias Mitzrayim need to be on the matzah, lechem she'onin bo, lechem, oni, lechem, that we answer the questions. We don't have any matzah left on the table after the benching, but we have the tam matzah. We have the taste of the matzah in our mouths, and that serves that the continuing to talk about, continuing to learn about, should be also on the matzos, that the matzos should be there. How long, Rabbosai, are we supposed to do that for? How many hours are we supposed to spend? We know that kol hamarba hareze meshubach, but strangely enough, it's not just kol hamarba, but we know from the famous story of the 5 rabbis in Bnei Brak, this idea for some reason to tell the story until the Talmidim come and they say that the morning has broken. There's a very similar image of something continuing to the boker at the beginning of Parshas Tzav. Zos Toras ha'olah, hi ha'olah al mogda al hamizbeach kol halayla ad haboker. The famous Orach Chaim on this pasuk explains that this whole idea of the fire burning on the Mizbeach all the way till the Boker is also a fantastic mashal. The Laila is the Laila of Galus. And that fire, the fire of Torah, is what has to get us through and will get us through ad haboker, until the end. When we say all night, when we stay up, if we can do it, as many hours as we try to stay up to be able to continue talking about Tzipur Yetzias Mitzrayim with the flavor of the matzah in our mouths, at least figuratively, we're trying to go to the boker. Because it's that passion, it's that Torah, it's your Torah, which gets us through the night. The Torah learning that you did this year got us through such difficult times. I can't explain to you what you as the Talmidim did for us, for the Rabbeim, for the Hanhala. It was such a difficult year, but knowing that you kept learning, knowing that you kept up in the Beis Medrash, knowing that you would be there ad haboker until we were able to bring the Beis Medrash back fully, that was everything to us. And we owe you a tremendous debt of gratitude for doing that, for us, to give us chizuk, to get kol halayla ad haboker. Of course, there are not one but 3 geulas. Yetzias Mitzrayim coming the first time, coming back for Bayis Sheni, and coming back in Mirz Hashem for the final geula. The Orach Chaim speaks about the final geula, about that fire on the Mizbeach making us, allowing us to get to not simply the first door of redemption, not only the second door or gateway of redemption, but to the third and final gateway of redemption. Rabbi say, now's your chance to learn Psachim through the summer, to continue until we get to the Bava Basra, until we get to the final gateway. Mirz Hashem, it should be the final gateway, but at least you could be Mekayim, keeping the fire, the Tam Pesach, the Tam Matzah, the Tzipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, until we get to the Boker, until we get to the final gate, Mirz Hashem and Elul, of Bava Basra. Mazel Tov.
I want to thank Rabbi Penner for always finding a way to connect the current Masechta to the future Masechta. He did not come up short once again this year. Right now, we have a very special opportunity to give a big Mazel Tov to the members of the Makor program. on their completion of in Yaakov on Maseches Pesachim.
The camera's off again now.
I know that I speak on behalf of all of the Rebbeim and all of the Talmidim to speak of the chizuk that watching the members of the Makor program coming day in and day out, so many in person every single day this year, steiging away in the base medrash, davening with tremendous kavanah, which has been a tremendous chizuk for myself personally. I know for all of us, we have tremendous hakaras tov to all that you bring to the yeshiva, and wish you all a tremendous, tremendous mazel tov. And at this time, I'd like to call upon Menachem Aaron Wallach, because Menachem Aaron personally completed all of Shas Mishnayos, and he's going to and he will now represent all of the Talmidim of Makor by completing the final Mishnah right now.
First, Rosh Yeshiva, and the BAM and all of you Talmidim on Zoom and in person. I'm just going to read the last Mishnah, part of the last Mishnah in Kinim. It says, Rabbi Shimon ben Aksha Omer, Ziknei Am Haaretz Kol Zaman Shemaz Kinanin. Daiton Mitafes, don't worry, translate afterwards. Alehan Shenemar Meisir Safa Manim Vitam Zikinim Yikach. About Ziknei Torah Inan Kain Ella Kozman Shemaz Kinin. Daiton Seyeshaves Alehan Shenamar Bishishim Chachma Vachamim Tuna. Rabbi Shimon Aksha says, ignorant old people, the older they become, unfortunately, but whatever, they become, I don't consider them old, but whatever, they become, the more intelligent they get. To be fondled, as it says, he remembers sweet of men of trust and takes away the sense of the elders. When it comes to the Chachamim scholars, not so. On the opposite, the older they get, the more their mind becomes composed. As said, with age, man comes wisdom and stand with the age. Hiding off Mishnayos, sitting Tahos and Shas Mishnayos. And merch is shared by all of you if you didn't finish it yet. I hope all of you finish soon.
Okay, shkoyach, everybody, shkoyach. We'll say Ad Kan Hakafa Aleph, I guess. At this time, we're going to call upon Talmidim to recite Maseches Pesachim. First, going to call upon Yonah Diamond to learn the last few lines of the Masechah.
The Roshei Yeshiva, the Rabbanim, the Mashgichim. The Gemara Kuf Chaf Aleph Amud Beis discusses Pidyon Haben. Rav Simlai iklo Pidyon Haben. Rav Simlai traveled to Pidyon Haben. Bao mine pshita al Pidyon Haben. Asher kishan b'mitzotav v'tzivanu al Pidyon Haben. Avi Haben mevarech. So they asked Rav Simlai. So obviously on the Pidyon Haben, the Berachas Mitzvah of Asher kishan b'mitzotav v'tzivanu, the father makes the bracha. Baruch shechianu v'kimanu v'yanu lazaman hazeh, Kohen mevarech or Avi Haben mevarech. So the Birkas Hazman of shechianu, does the Kohen make the bracha or does the father make the bracha? Kohen mevarech de kamati hana aliyadeh, or Avi Haben mevarech de ka'avin mitzvah. So does the Kohen make the bracha because he's receiving the hana from the money, or does the father make the bracha because he's the one doing the mitzvah? Lo hava biyadeh. So Rav Simlai didn't have the answer. Ata shayil be midrasha. He went to ask in the base medrash what the halacha was. Amrulei Avi Haben mevarech shtayim. Vilchata Avi Haben mevarech shtayim. So they told him the halacha is the father makes both brachas, and that such the halacha. Hadron alach arvei psachim v'slik alach meseches psachim.
Shkoyach Yonah. Now we call upon Yair Kaplan to read the Hadron and the Yiras.
Hadron alach Maseches Pesachim Hadrach Alon. Datan alach Maseches Pesachim Datach Alon. Lo Nisa Sheminach Maseches Pesachim V'lo Sis Sheminan Lo Ba'alma Adin V'lo Ba'alma Da'aseh. Hadron alach Maseches Pesachim Hadrach Alon. Datan alach Maseches Pesachim Datach Alon. Lo Nisa Sheminach Maseches Pesachim Lo Sis Sheminan Lo Ba'alma Adin V'lo Ba'alma Da'aseh. Hadron alach Maseches Pesachim Hadrach Alon. Datan alach Maseches Pesachim V'datach Alon. Lo nis neshem minach maseches pesachim lo sis neshem minan lo ba'al ma'adem lo ba'al ma'aseh. Yirtzon fanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'leibosenu shetei saras chom nasinu ba'olam hazeh u'seheimanu l'olam haba. Chanina bar Papa, Rami bar Papa, Nachman bar Papa, Achai bar Papa, Avamari bar Papa, Rafram bar Papa, Rochesh bar Papa, Surcha bar Papa, Ad bar Papa, Dar bar Papa. Arevna Adonai Eloheinu es derei saras chabefinu v'yos amcha beis Yisrael v'niel kulanu anachnu mitzatzeinu. Tazemcha beis Yisrael kolonio deishamecha v'lomadei sorasecha. V'ayvais chakmeni techakmeni mitzasecha ki leolam hili. Hili bisamim v'chokecha laman lo evosh. L'olam lo ashkach b'chdecha ki bam chisani. Baruch atah Adonai lomadeni chokecha min amen sela v'ed. Odim anachnu l'fanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'leibosenu. Shesamta chalkenim yoshvei beis hamedrash. V'lo samta chalkenim yoshvei kranos. Shanu mashkimim he mashkimim. Anu mashkimim devrei sorav he mashkimim dvar metelim. Anu amelim v'hem amelim. Anu amelim mekabel m'sachar v'hem amelim v'einam mekabel m'sachar. Anu ratzim v'hem ratzim. Anu ratzim l'chayolam haba v'hem ratzim l'varshachas. Shemar v'atol him tordim l'varshachas anshe damim u'mirma lo yechzu mehem v'ani eftach bach. Yirtzon v'necha Adonai Elohai kishem shazar tani l'sayim maseches pesachim kein tazrein l'haschem masechtos u'sfarim acherim u'l'saymam lil mod u'lamed l'shmor v'lasos u'kayem es kol devei some of their secha be'ava u'schus kol atanaim ha'amoraim V'samidei chachamim yamod li u'zari shalo samush hatorim pizari u'zer zari ad olam. V'ziskayem bi b'hisalecha tancheusach v'shachlucha tishmor alecha v'kitzos tisichecha kivir yamecha v'yosifu lecha shnos chayim orech amin v'minah v'smolah osher v'chavod Adonai ozamo yitein Adonai v'rech esamo v'ashalom.
You can stay first for a moment. This year is the 6th year that I have had the schus of since I came back to start working at yeshiva. And that very first year when I was here, I was struck. This is something, the siyum that takes place during June's Zman was something that I had not seen until I come back to work here in Yeshiva, had the zechus to do so. And at that siyum, I had the opportunity to see Rabbi Joel Schreiber make a siyum on the same masechta that all the Talmidim had made a siyum on. And it was an incredibly powerful moment for me personally. And I know it is every year for the Talmidim that Rabbi Schreiber is a chairman emeritus and current trustee in the REITs board. We want to welcome Rabbi Schreiber's grandson of Rami, who's joining us also. And this is the 6th year in a row that Rabbi Schreiber is making a siyum on the same masechta that all of us are making a siyum on. And we're looking forward to honoring Rabbi Schreiber at the Chag HaSmicha this fall. And it's a tremendous honor and privilege to call upon Rabbi Schreiber to recite the Kaddish.
Sit there. Just before we say the Kaddish, just a couple of words, a few words. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you today. Some of you, I know because some of you have been here before, I take it, and some not. But as has been pointed out, it's 6 years so far. And if I recall, it was Sukkah, Sanhedrin, Kedushin, Baba Kama, Chulin, and now Psachim. And it's a pleasure, it really is, to celebrate with you. You know, and the Gemara talks about a coin that had two sides to the coin. One side had, I think it was Avram and Sarah, two elderly people. And the other side had a young boy and a young girl. And then the thought is that it takes the youth as yourself, and it takes the older people to build this yeshiva and to keep the Torah coming and going in this very, very important Beis HaMikdash. It's the core of the yeshiva. I liken it almost to a nuclear plant. You have a core, which may seem small, and then you have the huge building, you know, it seems large. But the fact of the matter is, it's the core. That's what really keeps it all burning. And you are the core. The students here, the Torah that you learn, it's what makes Yeshiva University, Yeshiva University. Finally, one last thought, that you are blessed with Rosh Yeshiva, who are the finest in the world. And you're really, truly blessed with it. And a thought came to me is, end of Psachim, Kuf Yud Beis, Amud Aleph. Use my glasses for this one. The Gemara says, Chamisha Dvarim Tziva Rabbi Akiva as Rabbi Shimon Yochai Kishohay Yachavish Bebeis Asurim. It was during Roman times, and things were very tight, tough, and learning was looked down upon. In fact, you could lose your life. Amalo, Rebbe, Lamdeni Torah. He said, teach me the Torah. Amma, he said, Ani Malamdecha. I'm not going to, because there's a matter of life and death. Amalo, Im Eina Tom Lamdeni, Ane Ome Liyoche Abba, Umisorchel Malchus. He made some threat that he would turn him in if he didn't teach him. And hearing this, he said, Amalo, Beni, my son, Yoser mimasha ha'egel rotza linok, para rotza lihanek. More than the calf wants to take the milk, the mother wants to give him that milk. And that thought is something I think is so important. The Rosh Yeshivas we have here, more than you want to learn, your Rosh Yeshivas want to teach you. And when you reach that madrega, you've reached a tremendous, tremendous madrega, and you have a gift, and you have to know how to use that gift as time goes on. And now, the Kaddish. Yiskadal v'yiskadash me rabba. Yomad hu asid las chazata Ulachaya Messiah, Ulasaka Yason, Lachayelma, Umivne Karta Yushalem, Ushachlola Hechla Bagabe, Ulamekar Pelchana Nuchroya Minara, Ulasava Pelchana Yishmaya Yasre, Yamlich Kucha Brichu Machusevi Kore, Bachayechon of Yamechon, Ubachai the whole base Israel, Bagalov is my Koriv, Yamru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabam Varach, Leolam Umeil Maya, Yisparach Vishtabach, Yispar, Visramam Visnase, Yisadar Bisaleh Bisalol, Shmei the Good Shah, Richu, Lielam in Kolba Chasav, Shirasa, Tishvarasav, and Nechamasa, Damiram Bielma, Bimru Amen. Al Yisrael, Rabbanon, Val Tamiyadon, Val Kol Tamidei, Samideon, Val Kol Monda Oskim Beraisa, Dibi Asra Dain, Lichul Asar Basar, Yehei Lahon Lachon Shlama Rabba, China Bechizda Rachman, Bechayin Arichin, Mizona Reviche, Uvakonim Kodavu in the Vishmaya Yarab, Yimru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabban Shemaya, Bechayim Tov, Elena Bako Yisrael, Yimru Amen. Oseh Shalom Brahma, Bubrachma Yaseh Shalom Elenu, Bako Yisrael, Yimru Amen. Shikach to you all.
The question mark. All right, I think you're on. 7:10.
Okay. Beautiful, guys. We can ask everyone to find a seat, take a few deep breaths, cool off a little bit. Just before we go through and scroll down the list of all of the Mesayimim, I just want to mention just dancing in a circle just a few moments ago with the Talmidim, and of course with Morena B'Shechter, and just feeling the pulsating energy of this room, the emotion of this room, the beauty of this room. If there's some way of just almost putting all of that into some type of clay to bring to the world and to bring to our lives when we need that joyfulness, but just such exquisite beauty. And really Ashreinu and Ashreichem of just being involved in this life. I want to give a mazel tov as well, of course, to the Mesayimim. I think people are aware of the fact that Pesachim, although it's not officially in the Ani Masechtos, it's unquestionably one of the more difficult Masechtos in Shas. You can have 100+ Talmidim finishing Masechtas Pesachim, taking Bechinas Masechtas Pesachim. But really, it's a mazel tov to everyone. It's a mazel tov to someone who came even to morning Seder and really tried and maybe struggled. It's a mazel tov to people who came to night Seder Bichlal and tried and learned. Every person celebrates their own chelek, their own accomplishment, and feels such simcha in their own chelek as well. Obviously, we're celebrating people who accomplished something incredible. But every person in their own way has their own incredible feats, and we celebrate that as well this evening. Rabbi Schnall? Okay. I can always speak more. That's not a problem.
Shuss okay la godoy la gibor ve hanoyro meire shuss mi pas mit minim yekoro meire shuss an hedrin hakedoy shva berura meire shuss ro sheye shivos valu feito yero
meire shuss okay la godoy la gibor ve hanoyro meire shuss mi pas mit minim yekoro meire shuss an hedrin hakedoy shva berura meire shuss Yeshivos, Balufei Toiro.
Amoy, Rabbi Chassan Atoyro, the same Kovoy, Lekel Godol B'Noiro. Amoy, Rabbi Chassan Atoyro, the same Kovoy, Lekel Godol B'Noiro. Amoy, Rabbi Chassan Atoyro, the same Kovoy, Lekel Godol B'Noiro. Amoy, Rabbi Chassan Atoyro, the same Kovoy, Lekel Godol B'Noiro. Meire shuss okay la godoy ha giboy ve hanoyro meire shuss mi paz mit ninim yekoro meire shuss an hedrin hakedoy shva berura meire shuss ro sheye shivos valu feito yero meire shuss okay la godoy la giboy ve hanoyro meire shuss mi paz mit ninim yekoro meire shuss an hedrin hakedoy shva berura meire shuss ro sheye shivos valu feito yero
Amoy, Rabbi Chassan Atoyro, Nesim Kovoy, Lekel Godol B'Noiro. Amoy, Rabbi Chassan Atoyro, Nesim Kovoy, Lekel Godol B'Noiro. Amoy,
Rabbi Chassan Atoyro,
Nesim Kovoy,
Lekel Godol B'Noiro. Rabbi Chassan Atoyro, the same Kovoy, Lekel Godol B'Noiro. Meire shuss ro sheye shivos valu feito yero Amoy,
Rabbi Chassan Atoyro,
the same Kovoy,
Lekel Godol B'Noiro.
Amoy,
Rabbi Chassan Atoyro,
the same Kovoy, Lekel Godol B'Noiro. Amoy, Rabbi Chassan Atoyro, the same Kovoy, Lekel Godol B'Noiro. Amoy, Rabbi Chassan Atoyro, the same Kovoy, Lekel Godol B'Noiro. Rabbi Chassan Atoyro, the same Kovoy, Lekel Godol B'Noiro. Amoy, Rabbi Chassan Atoyro,
Nesim Kovoy, Lekel
Godol B'Noiro.
Maslav again, Rav Soloveitchik always spoke beautifully about the idea that a shul, a base knesset, and of course a base medrash as well, that it's really a symphony. One person might be the first violinist, another person might have only 1 minute to get up at the end and to put the giant cymbals together or the giant drum, but each person has a role in the symphonic beauty of a community and in a base medrash. Of course, without leaders, without Rosh Yeshiva, it's a disparate symphony. It's disparate noises. Without inspiration, without elevation, without a sense of harmony, without a sense of unity, without a sense, again, of inspiration. Baruch Hashem, the Rosh Yeshiva here have provided so much of that. And of course, Rosh Shechter has been so responsible for creating the beautiful symphony of the Beis Medrash. Through his inspiration, through his presence, his hasmada, his care, it's taken disparate parts and created something extraordinarily beautiful. We have so much Akarsov to Rebbe, and especially this past year, which has been so difficult and so challenging. And want to just thank Rebbe for his leadership of the community this past year as well. And we ask Rosh Shechter to share a few words.
Thank you very much, Mazel, to all the Messiahim. In the very last Mishnah in the Mesichta, the Mishnah assumes that when you bring a Korban Pesach or when you eat the Korban Pesach, it's a question which bracha the Mishnah is talking about. When you bring the Korbanos of the Korban Pesach and the Chagigas Haba Osar, you have to recite a bracha. So there's a din that in Bichas Hanenin, that if you said a bracha on the Iker, there's no need to say a bracha on the Tofel. So there's a machlekes Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel in the Mishnah that you have to recite two separate brachas, one on the Korban Pesach, one on the Chagiga. Or can you say Beruch Haloika Pateras HaTfeilah? That's what Tosfos on the last daf quotes the Talmud Yerushalmi, that's the Nekudas HaMachlekes between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Shmuel thinks that the Korban Pesach is the Iker, and the Chagigas Haba Osar is in order to facilitate the eating of the Korban Pesach. Should be Nechal Ala Sova. But the Iker, especially we assume Chagigas Haba Osar is only with the Rabbanan. Korban Pesach has been a Torah. So the Korban Pesach is the Iker and the Chagigas Haba Osar is the Tofel. So just like there's a din in Birchas Hanen and Beruch Haloika, Patos HaTfeilah, so that din applies to Birchas HaMitzvahs as well. And Rabbi Akiva disagrees. It's a little unclear whether Rabbi Akiva holds from the klal, that the klal, Iker and Tofel applies even to mitzvahs. But over here he thinks each korban is independent. The Chagigas Haba Osar is not a Tofel. Or maybe he disagrees in principle. Maybe he holds that Beruch Haloika, Patos HaTfeilah only applies to Birchas Hanen and doesn't apply to Birchas HaMitzvah. So there's a discussion, there's a machlekes hatanoim, but the charosis is a mitzvah mid'Rabbanan, or it's only for medical reasons. You may be eating a live worm. They're talking about worms there are worms that are kosher and worms that are treif. So if you eat some of these worms are kosher, but it's not healthy to have live worms crawling about in your stomach. So the Gemara says there's machlekes hatanoim whether dipping the mortar into the charosis is for health reasons to kill the worms, to kill the kippah, or no, it's for religious reasons that to have a charosis is a mitzvah d'Rabban. So the Rambam contradicts himself. The Rambam, the Pirush HaMishnayos, writes that we obviously have not accepted the opinion of the Tana that charosis is a mitzvah. Because if it would have been a mitzvah, there would have been another bracha in the Haggadah. That's what the Rambam writes. So the fact that we don't have any such Haggadah that it has such a bracha, obviously we assume that charosis is not a mitzvah. It's only for medical purposes that we eat it. And the Rambam and the Yarach HaZaka and the Mishnah Torah backed out on both points. The Rambam and the Mishnah Torah paskins that charosis is a mitzvah mid'Rabbanan, and nonetheless you don't recite a bracha. So the Mefarshim wonder why not? If it's taka mitzvah d'Rabbanan, why don't you say a bracha? Rav Soloveitchik gave a whole suggestion on this, but the Tur and a group of other Rishonim say no. The reason why the Rambam holds you don't say a bracha on the charosis is because you have an Iker and a Tofel. The Iker is the mortar, and you dip the mortar in the charosis. The charosis is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, but it's only a Tofel to the mortar. You don't have charosis if you don't have any mortar. So the Tur and a whole group of Rishonim assume that we do accept the klal of Rabbi Shmuel. Beruch Haloika Patos HaTfeilah doesn't only apply to Birchas Hanenin, it applies to Birchas HaMitzvahs as well. When it comes to Iker and Tofel and Birchas Hanenin, the Gemara says, if you're really interested in eating everything in the whole mixture, then whatever is more than 50% is arbitrarily, or not arbitrarily, is automatically declared as the Iker. Whatever is less than 50% is declared as the Tofel. But what happens if what's more than 50% is not really why you're eating it? Sometimes you have granola bars. Granola means the kernels of oats that you're eating. The ikar of the granola bar is the oats, bari pri hadama. But a lot of times you have corn syrup that holds it all together. So a lot of times the corn syrup, which is not bari minim zaynis, which is not bari pri hadama, so a lot of times the corn syrup is going to be more than 50%. But still, if the ikar is really the granola, then you say the bari pri hadama, and the corn syrup is eaten without any bracha at all. We don't always say whatever is more than 50% is the ikar. Sometimes what's more than 50% is the tafel. If you're really interested in the granola, that becomes the ikar. In life, not everybody's going to be able to sit and learn in the base medrash all day long. Now you're all fortunate. You can learn night seder, morning seder. Whenever you have a chance in the afternoon, you have a free class, you have a free period. So you can come and sit and learn the base medrash. Later in life, not everyone will have that opportunity. You have to make up your mind what's the ikar and what's the tofel in your life. Sometimes you'll only have an hour every day. Halavai will have an hour every day to learn. But you should have the attitude that that hour a day that you learn, that's the ikar. And the other 23 hours of the day are the tofel. It's not necessarily the case that whatever is 51% is the ikar. Sometimes the ikar is what's less than 50%. Should always have the attitude that the learning is the ikar. And this will have an effect on all of your lives. I wish you all continued hatzlach and learning kolzman. You're in the yeshiva. You should continue to learn after you graduate the yeshiva, even if you won't be in avodas Hashem. Whatever you're going to do for a living, the ikar should always be the learning of Torah, even if it's going to be less than 50%. Mazel tov to everybody.
Okay, we're almost finished. Of course, at every siyum, we begin next year's Masechta. We call upon Jake Yisrulowitz to say the first Mishnah in Bava Basra.
Bishop's the Rosh Yeshiva. So the Mishnah of Bava Basra starts Shotzvin Shirotz Lasotzvin Pizza Bechotzer. So Shotzvin, in cases if it's less than 8 amos, so it's so in cases it has to be that they both want it because each don't have 4 amos. So therefore, only if they both want to do it, and they can. So in that case, they could build a chutzner in the they could build a bone and kotel emsa. They could build a kotel in the middle. Malkum Shnagul with no kavil. Malkum that has the midak to build with these unpolished stones. That's what they use. Gazes, or they use polished stones. Kfisin is like a half bricks, or levanim or full bricks. Boden, that's what they used to build. Hakol, Kaminag Medina, everything's based on the Minhag of Medina. So the Gemara later said that's coming to include like these type of like branches. And the Gemara says it has to be that there's no hole in between the branches. It's because of the din of Hezek Re'iyah. One pshat, and what that means is that basically Rashi explains that that most things that people used to do in the bayis, they also did in the chatzar. And if someone was able to see in your chatzar, then you would be uncomfortable in doing a lot of the actions that you do in your house in the chatzar. So that would be a din Hezek Re'iyah. So therefore, in all these cases, the wall has to be covered so no one can see through the wall. So that mission is going to go through the measurements of what each person has to give. So for Gvil, for the unpolished stones, each has to give 3 tvachim. Because there's anotin to tvachim machatze, so by Gaz each would give 2.5. By Levanim zenotin to machatze, by half bricks each one give 1.5. And then let's get one. Oh yeah, I did. Sorry. Kfisin denoting tefachim zenotifachim. By kfisin by the half bricks, yeah, each give 2, and then by Levanim 4 bricks each give 1. Tevach machatze zenotifachim each give 1.5. So the Gemara says, so the Mishnah says, therefore, if the wall would fall, then both the wall, like the stones, even if they fall on one person's side, the stones and the place where they built the wall would belong to both people. So the case is now, let's say someone buys, the Bartanur explains, if someone buys a garden, part of a garden of someone else, he's gonna build so he wants to build a wall. So in this case, he has to build a wall, and the Gemara says it's not because of it's not the case we said before with the chutzner because of hezekriya, because you can't do most of the things. Rather, the case of this garden is because the Gemara says like an ayin ra. If someone looks at your crops like growing, it'll lead to them dying. So the Gemara says, the Mishnah says about bakal, but in a wheat field, when a place where they don't have the minhag to build this wall, you don't have to. But if the person would want to, if he's, even though he doesn't have to, if he still feels that he's afraid of Zayin Ra, he could make this wall. And what he has to do, he has to make a sign on the other side of the wall. This is because we're afraid that, let's say if he put on his own side and the other person could just put a sign on his side. So therefore we make him put on the other side. So the only way for the other person to put it on the other side, he has to go around and trespass. So that won't happen. So therefore we tell the person to put on the other side of the wall. Therefore, if the kotel would fall, since he's the one who built it, since he put the sign of the makom and of Avon, no matter where they fall, would be his. And so then the Mishnah says, and if both want to make the wall, bonus kotel, but they built the wall in the middle. But osen chazis mikan umikan. So they make a chaz on each side both make on each side of the wall, on the front and the outside. Therefore, if the kotel would fall, then the stones of the kotel and the place where they built it would belong to both of them. That's tough, guys.
Rosh Hashem will have 100 plus Masayim next year as well, at the very least, and Hatzlacha and such a beautiful Masechta. Lastly, just to wrap up this evening with some words of Torah and Chizuk, we call upon Gabe Isaacs.
Rishus, Rosh Yeshiva, Rishus, Rabbanim, Chaverim, Shkichim, and everyone in between. So when it comes to halacha and the confines of halacha, there are two standard types of kinyanim that take place. There's the classical one, which the classical two really, that is more object-oriented and judicial type of kinyan, such as with kesef or with the shtar. However, there's also a second type, which is more bilis and ownership-oriented. Right? This is, as we know it, as a chazaka. Right? His attitude towards the land is what allows the person to be kona. Right? He allows and restricts people to have entry into the land, and it's his dispositions towards it that allows the person to be kona of the land. So there is, however, a lesser known third approach that Chazal also say that a person can be kona. That is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. The Gemara in Bava Basra and Daf Kuf and Parshas Lech Lecha, right after the Gemara in Bava Basra, on Daf Kuf is where the sheet is found. It's really highlighted in Parshas Lech Lecha. Right after Abram and Lot depart from one another, Hashem tells Abram, "Kum salech ba'aretz la'arka l'rachba ki lecha etnana." He tells Abram to get up and walk the land in width of the land that Hashem is going to give him. The Targum Yonasan says something very profound by this line. He says, "Kum tile ba'ara v'abed ba'chas kasa la'arka ulepatia aram lecha etnana." He says that Abram should get up and go make a chazaka on the land. And he's quoting the shita of Rabbi Eliezer and Bava Basra, who says that walking through the land suffices as kinyan. When a person walks through the land, he expresses ownership by feeling the soil, expressing a connection with the terrain, seeing the heights of the mountains and the depths of the valleys. This message is, of course, true with learning as well. When a person can walk through a Masechta and finish it, he's making a kinyan. He has felt the terrain of the texts, seen the beauty of the Rishonim, and felt the rhythm of the words. It is only once a person finishes the Masechta do the opinions within it fully culminate together and connect. My grandfather is a Talmud of the Rav, and I've had this chus of reveling in all of the stories and nostalgia and all the memories which he tells me about being in the shir. And when I was in yeshiva for the year, I had this chus of actually showing him one of the more intense and powerful speeches, which I heard from Prof. Soloveitchik. The Rav in 1974 at Opinion Haben describes how learning makes each person another link on the Shalshelas HaTorah, an additional party in the Masorah. I won't quote much of it because I surely won't do justice to the way that the Rav said it. However, there are some points which I can highlight. He describes that when he would give shir, it wouldn't just be him with his talmidim in the room. It was full. The room was full with the Balei Tosfos, the Shach, Rav Chaim, and the entire Shalshelas HaTorah. There is a symposium, a dialectic, discussing the proper way to understand Torah Sheba'al Peh. It is through our learning that connects us to the Shalshelas and the greater Torah community. I think it is possible to suggest that the further along a person gets in a Masechta, the more the presence of the Amoraim and Tanam are in the room when he learns it. Because as we move along in the Masechta, the Shitos are polished and strengthened. More questions were asked by both the Amoraim, the Tanam, and the Rishonim. It is through this connection that a person can converse with any learned Jew at any point. It is something that will create an inherent bond between a 21-year-old Bachar in Yeshiva University and a 75-year-old man in Bnei Brak. When a person finishes the Masechta, he's not simply just another person to finish Masechta Pesachim. He did not simply read the text, doing his best to remember it. He strengthened his chain in the Shalshelas of Torah, ensuring that his link is not a weak one. He heightened his levels and abilities to connect with everyone who has learned the Masechta before him. So with that, I wish everyone a huge mazel tov to everyone who finished Masechta, and in Mir Hashem, there will be many more.
Okay. Just before we bench, Rabbi Radner, with his typical sensitivity and creativity, he asked me to present two different cards, thank you notes with the signatures of the Talmidim who learn Night Seder. The first again to Rabbi Schreiber, whose efforts and serious nefesh for the yeshiva has inspired me and so many others for so many decades. And I read the text of the card to Rabbi Schreiber. Thank you so much for encouraging and enabling us to make a kinyan on the Yeshiva Masechta through the Night Seder B'kiyas program. While we cannot possibly appreciate all of the logistics, wrong card. Okay, we can't possibly appreciate all of your efforts on behalf of the yeshiva. We would like to express our karas hatov for you for providing us with a yeshiva experience in an unusually challenging time. The year as a whole has been a year of Laila. And so we thank you for giving us the opportunity to have a night Seder in yeshiva. May Kadosh Baruch Hu grant you many, many years of strength and wisdom, shaping and leading the cloud. Very sincerely, the grateful Talmidim of the YU Night Seder B'kiyas program. Thank you, everyone. And lastly, I want to take a second, Rabbi Radner, thank you for providing this opportunity of giving a tremendous thank you to Rabbi Schnall, and hold your applause, please. It's not to Rabbi Bacon, to Rabbi Kalinsky, to Rabbi Penner, and to many others. I want to explain to you, because this may not necessarily apply to myself, the overwhelming ahava that the Hanhalas HaYeshiva has, so much so that people are awake at night thinking, what can we do? What can we provide? How do we create even more of an Avirah? What are new initiatives of Harbatzas Torah? It's not like a job. It is a passion that overflows into every piece of the lives of the people that I mentioned and others as well. And I'm not sure if people as great as all of you are just appreciate how much has to happen for the yeshiva to be the yeshiva, and how much love, ingenuity, thoughtfulness, strength, creativity, passion has to go into creating this incredible Avirah here. So I want to again thank, and we're going to ask everyone to join us, the Hanhalas Yeshiva, Rabbi Schnall, Rabbi Bacon, Rabbi Kalinsky, Rabbi Penner, and many others as well. Knowing Rabbi Schnall, he probably had some inkling that we're going to thank them, so he probably left already. We ran out just in the nick of time, but is someone benching Greg Linsky? What's that? He's hiding.
You could say, right?
Just a reminder to all the Messiahim on your way out, please take a copy of the Beis Yitzchak to enjoy and to continue to grow from.